Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, thousands of people protest in Lagos, accusing police of having torched their homes around them as part of a bid to destroy shanty towns around the Nigerian city. Tens of thousands of people have reportedly been left homeless. Also, the effects of a year and a half of deadly political unrest in Burundi has been described as a descent into hell. This as part of a report from the International Federation for Human Rights, which is also calling for a civilian protection force to be sent in by world powers. And we hear from Tunisia's underground rubbish men called Berbechas. They play a huge part in getting at least some of what's thrown out into the street to recycling centres. But first, thousands of people from a fishing settlement at the edge of Lagos Lagoon outside of the Nigerian city marched to the office of the state governor on Monday to protest against their homes being burned to the ground. Tens of thousands of people were made homeless after Otodobame was torched earlier this month. Several people were allegedly killed that night. Its residents accused police of burning their houses down around them in the middle of the night and preventing them from saving their homes.
As we are standing here, we are all here without house. So even though they ask us to go back home now, we have nowhere to sleep. We will just sleep on top of the land, and again the policemen will come again and started chasing us away. So that is what is happening.
They even took me at back. Many of my brother dies, and many of our people die into water because we don't have any boats or we don't have any canoe to pass throughout the water. Many of us die into water.
Everything burn. Everything don't scatter. I don't see anything from my house. I don't see anything. I don't see my father. I call his number. I don't agree go. I don't know where they.
Well, people say that they have long been harassed by authorities trying to move them out. The destruction of Otodobame happened a day after a court had ordered the state to suspend plans to raze it to the ground. People have been living there for over a century and say they now have nowhere else to go. Our Chika Odua tells us more.
It all started on October the 9th when the governor of Lagos State gave an order to demolish what he called illegal structures on the waterfront communities in Lagos. And the governor actually gave inhabitants a 7-day ultimatum to vacate these areas. So that happened October 9th. Then on the 7th of November, the Lagos State High Court actually issued an injunction to actually restrain the demolition of these waterfront communities. But as we know, the communities were destroyed anyway. And of course, we understand that officials and residents are saying that they saw police involved in some of the demolitions. And it seems that there was some alliance between the police and a chief, a traditional ruler in the area, who he claims that the land actually belongs to him. He says that the government gave him the land in 1979. But again, everything is kind of blurred together. These people, they come from a community called the Egun people, and they claim that they have been in this area on the waterfront of Lagos for the past 300 years. And they believe that this is a war against the poor. They believe that the government is involved and that local traditional rulers are also involved as well.
Well, South Africa's main opposition party has filed a criminal complaint against President Jacob Zuma over corruption. The Democratic Alliance made the move after Zuma survived a no-confidence vote in Parliament last Thursday over allegations of influence peddling. The scandal-prone leader was plunged once more into hot water when an anti-graft agency released a report earlier this month calling for an investigation into possible corruption in Zuma's government. The leader of the Democratic Alliance says that he's determined to pursue suspicions of systematic abuses of power.
We will not rest until, in fact, Jacob Zuma accounts for what we believe are very strong criminal acts. These are acts of corruption which steal away from the livelihood of the people of our country.
Well, Kenya's deputy president set fire to a huge pile of illegal weapons on Tuesday. William Ruto helped destroy more than 5,250 firearms seized in gun crackdowns, amnesties and disarmament drives. Gun laws in the country are tough, but despite precautions, hundreds of illegal guns are smuggled in annually, especially from Somalia. Authorities reckon that at least 500,000 illegal guns are being held by civilians. Kenyans repeatedly faced attacks launched by gunmen from Somalia's al-Shabaab extremist rebellion. Well, the effects of a year and a half of deadly political unrest in Burundi has been described as a descent into hell. The International Federation for Human Rights has accused President Pierre Nkurunziza's government of systematic oppression that's fed into a cycle of violence in which more than 1,000 people have died. The Federation's been investigating rights abuses since the crisis was sparked by Nkurunziza's eventually successful bid for a third term in power. It wants world powers to send in a civilian protection force to stop things getting worse. Well, Chirina Gerolon from the FIDH joins me now. Chirina, the report specifically examines how close the situation in Burundi is skirting to genocide. Now, bearing in mind, when it all kicked off, initially it was a political crisis. We had Hutus and Tutsis on both sides of the dispute, both in support and opposition to Nkurunziza. Has that changed? Why do you think that genocide is a very real risk?
You're perfectly right. The crisis that is ongoing in Burundi, the origins of the crisis are intrinsically political origins and political reasons. To the demands for the respect of the letter and spirit of the Arusha Agreement, the respect of the letter and spirit of the Burundian constitution, these demands that have been made by hundreds and hundreds of demonstrators since April 2015 got repressive responses by the authorities in Burundi. The report that we have been releasing today, FIDH and the Ligiteka, actually details how this country has descended into chaos since 2015 and details the systematic and serious human rights violations that have been perpetrated against demonstrators, against journalists, against human rights defenders, and against ordinary citizens. The report provides sufficient details on the crimes that were perpetrated against those actors, including enforced disappearances, summary executions, rapes and other forms of sexual violence, arbitrary arrest and detentions. So the repression was really systematic. What we are saying today is that the authorities are trying more and more to transform what was originally a political opposition into an ethnic opposition. We have seen over the past months the authorities using increasingly an ethnic rhetoric, attempting to oppose Tutsis and Hutus, essentially, and to portray the Tutsis as being responsible for the crimes committed and responsible for the past crimes. So what we are saying is that this attempt from the authorities to target one part of the population is alarming, and we're requesting an urgent and concrete and strong response from the international community.
Chirina, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. We're out of time. But Chirina Gerolon there from the International Federation of Human Rights discussing some of the content of a report expressing concern about the disintegration of the political crisis there. Well, before we leave, we have time to hear from Tunisia's underground rubbish men. They're called Berbechas, and our correspondents have been speaking to them about the part they play in tackling the country's rubbish crisis.
Searching through garbage while the city of Tunis is fast asleep. Selim uses his bare hands to carefully sift through trash. He earns about €150 a month from selling on what he finds and has been doing his rounds for 20 years. Those who make their living this way are called Berbechas.
I salvage plastic, cartons, bottles, almost anything you can find in the trash. That's my life. It's how I got married. It's how I'll raise my children. At night, there are at least 50 of us in this sector alone.
There are an estimated 8,000 Berbechas, all undeclared workers of the informal economy. They provide 60% of Tunisia's recycling. In the morning, they sell their night's harvest to collectors by the kilo. Arsène used to be a Berbechas himself until he saved up enough money to run his own waste collection centre. He decided to make his career in garbage.
Okay, I owe you 12.5 dinars.
Each haul will be sorted and then resold to recycling factories, who will pay cash and without receipt.
We've created jobs thanks to garbage, and we play an important role in cleaning the country. Even the official garbage men tell us we're doing them a huge favour.
Tunisia's Berbechas are keen to formalise their industry. In 2014, an organisation was launched by former Berbechas who have since been campaigning for legal status, health insurance and access to financing.
We try to show the state that in Tunisia lots of people can make a living out of garbage. The state makes promises, but in the end, nothing happens.
Tunisia's problems with waste management has just got worse since the 2011 revolution. 60% of the rubbish goes to dumps and only 5% is recycled. Much of the rest is left on the streets.
Well, that's where I have to leave it for now. Thanks for joining us.